So the last thing to talk about is today's community paradigm. We've been updating every time we've come together over recent months. So a couple of exciting updates today. The short story is we've got a job to offer and we've got money to give out for the community chest. So I'm going to give a little bit of information about both of those. But for those of you who might be hearing about this for the first time, Herefordshire came together in March across a wide range of stakeholders in public sector, the emergency services, housing, business, community sector, to say, are we up for a different way of working together? And it's been mentioned several times today about much more focus on prevention, much more focus on giving power and control to communities to drive some of that, which is essentially what the paradigm's about. It's how do we shift to that instead of always focusing on treating ill health, fixing problems, and never really solving those problems at their root causes. Now, obviously, I'm not naive that there'll always be a spectrum and there'll always be people needing the high end of things. But I think there's something about the future that needs to reduce demand on that high end where possible by looking at addressing root causes and giving more power over to communities to play their part with that, which you're all doing day to day. But how do we tap into the things we talked about today around strengthening that community offer and making it more robust and resilient? So we came together first in March, and there was a resounding yes, we want to do this, but we recognise that it will be difficult. So Hilary Hall, who's the Corporate Director for Community Wellbeing in the Council, and myself have been convening various workshops with lots of different people, leaders in the public sector, leaders in the community sector. We've come here before, so we had an event at the end of September to ask you about how we go forward with this, because there's lots of tricky issues around what needs to be different and how we overcome those difficulties to make a paradigm shift happen. And it wasn't an easy, oh, well, that's really easy, this is what we need to do, let's get on and do it. Because if it was that easy, we would be doing it. So where we've got to now is the One Herefordshire Partnership partners, so that's Wye Valley General Practice, Mental Health, Public Health and Social Care, and Healthwatch have put in money in a pot to fund a 12-month post to help us really start to do some of the key things that we think we need to do to make the paradigm happen. So up to now we've all been doing it sort of spinning plates alongside what we do day to day. This needs dedicated resource to drive it forward. So we're now this week just gone out to advert for a paradigm manager essentially, so somebody that can start to bring people together, and we're structuring it in the first year around 6 particular pieces of activity. You've got some printouts on your table which talk in more detail, which is actually lifted from the job description, a little bit more about what those work streams could look like. But really the purpose of the new post holder when they're in post will be to work through some of these work streams. These are ideas that Hilary and I have come up with from all the work that we've done with different stakeholders over the last few months, really, that we think would start to bring the paradigm to life. You know, it isn't just about how we pool investment and find more money to pay for things in the community sector. The things Mike talked about is actually how do we just work differently? How do we move power around between us as partners? How do we all get our shoulder behind the same wheel instead of doing things separately that can sometimes feel like we're pulling in opposite directions? So the paradigm's about a whole range of things. So it isn't just about developing a community chest. I'm sure that that's the bit that lots of you are interested in. It will make a massive difference to lots of organisations, and it really is important, but it's only part of the picture. So that advert's gone out. I'd encourage you to share it. It's on the Healthwatch website, it's on social media. If you are somebody interested or you know somebody who has the skill set we're looking for, please signpost them to that role. So the next bit is the community chest, and there's some flyers on the table. Matt Pearce and we met in September here to talk about how we might structure our activity around what to do with the first bit of investment in the community chest. This isn't live yet. It's going to the Health and Wellbeing Board at the beginning of December. But what we have come up with, and I've tried really hard to meet in the middle with Matt, Director of Public Health, who's put the money in the pot, to keep the criteria as broad and flexible as possible, because what we want from a paradigm shift is for you to tell us what we think should be happening, what you can deliver, what communities might need at your very local level or in your geography or in your area of expertise. So the plan is the money will be held by the Community Foundation. The likelihood is we'll go live at the beginning of January. It says here that we want to distribute the funds by the end of March. I actually think they will have longer for the foundation to actually distribute it, but it probably needs to be out of Matt's bank account by the end of March into the Community Foundation, ready to distribute to you. So I would imagine, and we'll communicate the details, that this will go live at the start of January, that will invite expressions of interest into the foundation through the way that they normally issue grants, etc. And there'll be a group of us that convene to look at as a panel at these expressions of interest. But really, we wanted to encourage grassroots initiatives, so small grants up to £1,000, and then grants between £1,000 and £20,000. Now, it might be that you want to collaborate with others and think about how your projects can complement. It might be that you have some interesting initiatives that you've not been able to try before. And essentially, we're looking for things that can create lasting, meaningful connections for people to improve their emotional well-being. That's really broad for a really specific reason, because I think there's a lot of evidence that says, you know, having connections in your life can increase your life expectancy significantly. One of the top priorities for the Health and Wellbeing Board is to support good mental well-being throughout life. So we want this money to aim to address that at a community level. And then the other part around children and families, which is the second priority, is we would also want to invite expressions of interest that can strengthen the reach to families in need, which is again being kept quite loose and broad. And I've put intergenerational solutions because there might be something here that we can think differently about what you offer currently, that we might want to be more creative and think, but it doesn't have to be all three of those, it could be any one of those. So I mentioned before about this coming in the middle between Matt and I with his public health hat on. He wanted lots of criteria and measurements, which is not very community paradigm, but I appreciate there needs to be process, and part of developing what the approach of the paradigm is to test that out with this fund. So we know that there are some key areas and families. So on the right hand side there's some key areas of activity that we know we'd like to see more activity going on in communities in Herefordshire. If you could think about things that could target that, that would be helpful. And then there's some real principles about what we'd like to see from the outcomes. So we appreciate with this level of funding, sustainability and carrying on projects that might start up as pilots is not necessarily feasible. But what we'd like to see is what might the lasting impact be. Are you thinking about how it could be sustainable? So what does the community paradigm need to think about to continue that kind of thing if it's had a positive impact? And we want it quite obviously to be focused on the outcomes, not just counting and bean counting things and activities. So really outcomes for people is what we're looking for. And it's really important, the whole principle of the paradigm is we're co-producing this with communities. So we'd like to see the evidence that you're thinking about the need, that you've gone out and spoken to communities or groups, and it might be people you already work with, it might be where you live, that you're really starting to think about doing that piece of work to evidence that you've thought about what you're going to ask for, that addresses something that you've seen in the community, that you've seen the need and you've talked to people about it, and you're thinking about how you'd co-produce what you're going to do with communities. So that's the essence of what's going to come out, and if you're not on the mailing list for the community partnership, get on it, because it'll come out that way, and we'll announce it at the probably early in the new year. So quite exciting. It feels like for a long time we've been coming saying we're not quite there yet, we're not quite there. I think we're now on the cusp of having a person that can really dedicate some resource to making this happen. And it'll be probably a key person to come here and talk to you and engage with you about how that works when they're in post. So I'll probably stop there and take questions if anybody has any.